Good morning. Good morning, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is having a lovely start to their Wednesday. I'm just sort of checking to make sure all my tech stuff is working, as always. So I will be bouncing back and forth between looking in the Facebook group to make sure it's all working and back and forth with my notes. So I'm so glad to be here this morning to talk about a very important issue for all of us as therapists and clinicians, to talk about our boundary issues. We are all, I think, having or can have the possibility of having different boundary issues that show up for each of us in our practices. And so today I want to talk about them and what they really are about, and then how do we work on them in a way that is both kind and loving to ourselves. So I'm just checking in here really quick again. So if you are watching this live, I would love, love, love for you to drop a little comment and say hi. That helps me out a lot because it helps me to know that my tech stuff is working. So super helpful. So if you're watching live, drop a little comment and say hello. If you are watching on replay, I still love for you to pop a little comment in and let me know that you watched it on replay. That helps me as well. So for those of you guys who don't know me yet, I know there's a lot of new people in this lovely group. So I'm Lisa. I'm a licensed therapist and also a spiritual business coach. And I help other therapists work on their own limiting belief systems, imposter syndrome, that kind of thing, by helping them understand their attachment issues in a new and unique way, perhaps. And what makes it really unique is the way that I help them shift those attachment wounds and limiting belief systems is by teaching them about energy, so law of attraction stuff, and also how to find an authentic spiritual connection to help rewrite some of that stuff. So that is me. That is what we're going to be focusing on today, because all of those three elements there come in pretty much to almost every talk that I do. And they're definitely going to come up when we're talking about boundaries today. So I'm just refreshing really quickly again to see if anybody has popped on. I don't ever trust the technology parts. Okay, so let me get back to my notes then. All right, so let's talk about boundaries today, guys. I know that everybody here is already a therapist, a practitioner of some sort. So the idea of boundaries is not new to you, right? I'm sure that so many of you talk about boundaries with your own clients, right? You might talk about them having boundaries around certain family members and staying away from people that don't feel good to them. You might talk with them about boundaries, about their self-care, about making sure they're carving out time to take care of themselves. All of those things are totally relevant, of course, and it still apply to us as therapists, right? We need to have those boundaries too. But today I want to talk about things that are unique to us as therapists. So some boundary issues that come up for therapists while we're trying to run our practices. So I'm going to go over some of the big ones that I'm familiar with. Of course, it's not the only ones that exist out there, but I'm going to go through a list of things that'll probably resonate true for you at one time or another in your practice. And then, most importantly, we're going to talk about why those things can be tough for us, and then what we can do to help work on them. Okay? So, I'm just going to run down a list here for a minute. So the biggest one that I see that happens the most often is boundaries around our time, right? So I think it's hard when we are called to a helping profession that we understandably have great big hearts and we want to help everybody, and that can encroach upon our time, right? So, I think many of us have an ideal schedule set in our mind of which days and which times we're going to be working and seeing clients. And so the boundary issue comes up around how well do I stick to what I've decided my schedule is? Do I schedule outside of that? Another smaller way that a time comes up around boundaries is whatever I decide my session length is, whether that's 53 minutes or 55 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever, do I stick to that? Or do I go overtime, right? I can be guilty of that one. More so not because I'm allowing the client to keep talking, it's a little bit because I keep talking, but a boundary issue nonetheless, right? So that's one big one. One of the other big ones that comes up for us is communication with our clients outside of session. So what are our personal boundaries around texting or emailing or calling us, the clinician, in between sessions? Do you allow that all of the time? Do you allow it during certain hours? Do you only allow it regarding rescheduling? So it's not so much that there has to be one right or wrong answer with regard to that. It's more about what have I decided my rules are and do I stick to them? I think it also kind of depends on the nature of your practice, right? If you practice DBT, I know part of the DBT system is you're wanting clients to reach out, between sessions, but that's not true for everybody, right? So what are our boundaries around that? Somebody, when I was polling online, had also mentioned an awareness around needing to be mindful about sharing resources with clients a lot outside of session. I am one that will sometimes do that too. I try to be mindful when I'm doing it about, am I inundating people? Do I think this person is actually going to use this information? And is this person actively working on their own stuff, or am I now working harder than they're working, right? So again, not 100% right or wrong answers. It's just having the self-awareness around what are my guidelines and am I sticking to them? Okay, moving along down the list. Another boundary issue is, am I taking on too many clients? So again, we're each going to have an ideal amount of this is what my ideal caseload or schedule should look like. And do I stick to that, or do I have somebody reach out to me and I feel obligated to fit them into my schedule or make my scheduled hours longer so that I can fit them in, right? So when we're doing that, obviously that could lead to exhaustion for us, but it also can mean, this is a little bit of a subtopic, I think it becomes important for each of us to, in our schedule, it's a little bit of a subtopic, but making sure in our schedule that we have hopefully enough of our ideal clients, like the ones that when we're working with them, they're like super exciting to us. We love this work. We would almost do it for free, except for we're not going to do it for free in most cases, right? Do I have enough of those ideal clients in my schedule to help make it feel like an okay day, right? If I'm going above and beyond what my scheduled needs are, or what I'm wanting for my schedule, if I'm taking on more clients than I've agreed to, I'm going to be exhausted, and I'm also going to be exhausted if I don't have enough of my ideal clients in my schedule. Okay, moving on down the list. The next boundary issue. These are getting a little bit harder here, guys. Do I spend too much time, I'm putting that in quotation marks because I know that's an ambiguous term. Do I spend too much time thinking about my clients when I'm not in session? So this is tricky because, again, we generally have very caring hearts. We want what's best for our clients. It's not to say that they should never, ever, ever pop up in our minds in our day-to-day life when we're not in session. Of course, it's going to happen. But when it happens, if I have a client that comes to mind, am I sitting there thinking and stewing and trying to come up with a solution to their issue? Am I sitting there and worry about them? That, my friends, is an emotional and mental boundary issue, right? We need to be protective not just of our schedule and of our time, but we need to be protective of our mind and our energy. We are not meant to sit around and be thinking and stewing about all of our clients or any one of our clients, right? We are meant to help them and be in the moment with them when we're there. And then we have to learn how to let go, right? We're not responsible for their path. So this next one is related to it, and it's also like a little bit of a tough love one. Either when I'm in session with a client or outside of a session, do I have frustration or irritation or disappointment that they are not progressing the way that I think they should, or because they're not following the guidance and great wisdom that I have bestowed upon them, right? So again, that's a really complicated one because of course we care about our clients. Of course we want them to do well and succeed and be happier and healthier. Of course we do. It doesn't make us bad, awful, mean people if we have some frustration or some disappointment. Of course not. But we need to be really mindful of that, guys. Because again, if I'm having frustration that a client isn't progressing the way that I think in my mind that they should, even if I'm not saying it out loud, if I'm just feeling it inside of me, that is an emotional boundary issue. Because I've somehow attached myself to their outcome, right? So it's tricky. It's tricky. This field is not for the faint of heart, right? We know that. Moving on down the list. A couple more here, guys, and then we're going to get into the why and the how. So, what about if you have graciously agreed to reduce your fee for a client who has told you that they have some financial hardship of whatever kind, and then they repeatedly show up to your office with Starbucks, right? Are we making financial sacrifices when at times, maybe sometimes our clients are not, right? That is a boundary issue. It does not mean that we should never, ever, ever reduce our fee for anybody. I am so totally not saying that. But we need to be clear about what are my thoughts and values around when I will reduce my fee and when I will not reduce my fee. What are my guidelines for myself around that? Am I just giving it willy-nilly to anybody who asks for it? Or am I having uncomfortable conversation with them about my fee, right? If I am giving a little bit too easily, a little bit too flippantly, that is a boundary issue, right? I am not honoring myself for somebody that is maybe not, again, willing to do some of the sacrificing. So I don't know if that's ever happened to anybody else, but that has for sure happened to me before. And then the last one is allowing ourselves to share a little bit too much about our own personal lives. So I am all about appropriate self-disclosure. I do intentionally do that with my clients, with you guys here, right? Because I do think that some self-disclosure is helpful, right? It lets them know that we are human. I use example a lot to illustrate points that I'm trying to make, right? So you guys are going to see me a lot in here talking about examples from myself because I like the illustration, right? Brene Brown does the same thing. It's being mindful, again, about how much am I sharing and what is my intent in this moment? What is my motivation? Am I doing it specifically to illustrate this point? Am I trying to establish a little bit of rapport? Or have I seeped into thinking like, I don't know, I kind of like the attention, or I just want to talk about whatever. So it's just, again, being mindful around why am I choosing to share in this moment? What is my clear intent? What is my self-awareness around it? Okay. Oh, last one. Because this one I see a lot in Facebook groups. Not charging according to your guidance system for no-shows or late cancels, right? So again, there's not a 100% right or wrong answer here. People are, as clinicians, we're allowed to have our own opinions about freebie, giving a client a freebie of a no-show or late cancel. What do I feel about if someone has illness in their family? If they have a chronic medical condition, what are my thoughts around cancellations, right? Do I have a 24-hour policy? Do I have a 48-hour policy? What happens if they message me in 23 hours, right? So it's getting clear with yourself ahead of time of like, this is what I want my policy to be, and can I stick to it? Or do I give in? Do I cave? More on this in a minute, because I do think that it's important for us to learn how to have awareness and flexibility, but we'll start there. All right, so now let's move into how do we know if this is a boundary issue? How do we know if there is an issue with our boundaries, right? And I tend to think that how we know if something is an issue regarding our boundaries, or if this is just a choice that I am consciously making that aligns with me and my values, how I know which one it is we want to look for resentment, feeling exhausted or depleted, and then also watching for physical symptoms that show up in our bodies, right? Are we having chronic headaches? Are we tired all the time? Do we have a lot of tension in our shoulders, right? Our shoulders where we carry the weight of the world, right? So we're paying attention for things like that to then invite us to get curious. Is there any aspect of my practice where I need to look at my boundaries? Okay. So now let's move into the nitty-gritty, the why are these boundary issues coming up for us, right? We're all very smart. We all have an education. We all have all this experience. So how in the world could boundary issues come up for us when we teach boundaries to other people? So the answer, my friends, is kind of simple. Because we are human. We have our own needs, our own desires, and our own attachment wound stuff from our own childhoods. Of course we do. Just because we teach this stuff really well to our clients doesn't mean that we don't still have our own stuff to be aware of and to work on, and that our own shit doesn't sneak past our radar sometimes, right? That's okay. We are human. So you can kind of gather where I'm going with this. My belief is that our boundary issues stem from our own limiting beliefs about ourselves that come from childhood crap, from our unmet attachment needs early on that muck up our system, if you will. So I'm going to give you guys some tough love. This might feel, I don't want it to sound accusatory or blamey or anything like that. I truly, truly, truly say this with great compassion and great awareness, again, that we each have our own unmet attachment needs that can show up. So I look at the boundary issues that we encounter as falling generally under like two big categories of limiting belief issues. So the first big one, why do I have this boundary issue? Why am I going outside of my value system regarding X, Y, or Z? And one of the big reasons is because, tough love time, I want them to like me. I want my clients to like me, or I don't want to see them upset. I don't want them to be upset with me. I don't want them to be upset, period. Right? So, for example, if I were to set a boundary about my schedule, say I have a client that says, oh, this week I can't meet at our normal time. Could you meet with me at 7 p.m. tomorrow? And my end time, let's just say, is 5 p.m. You know, again, we might have to think about like flexibility sometimes, right? That's okay that we check in with ourselves of what is the nature of the relationship with this client? Are they generally pretty on top of stuff? Do I know that they have extenuating circumstances? So I might consider some of that stuff, maybe. But if I'm doing it very flippantly, I need to pause and think about why. Why am I really easy to give in and like move them to a time that's outside of my schedule time? Because I want them to like me. I don't want to upset them. I don't want them to be mad at me. Same thing, if I have my feet at a certain space and someone doesn't like it, someone disagrees with it, they're allowed to not like it, right? Again, I have to check in with my value system about whether this situation allows for me to reduce my fee. Maybe, maybe not. But if I cave very easily, why am I caving? Because I don't want to upset them. I don't want them to be mad at me, right? I know that sounds maybe weird or dramatic or whatever of, I don't really care if my clients like me. Okay, like if you have good boundaries around that, cool, awesome. But sometimes this is where our boundaries get shaky, because when we get down to the nitty-gritty of it, we want them to like us and we don't want them to upset us. Or, sorry, that just came out of my mouth wrong. We don't want to upset them. Interesting slip, right? So the other category of limiting belief that I see that comes up around our boundary issues is because it's my job to save them, right? So again, when we say that out of our mouth, that sounds completely ridiculous and illogical and whatever. But if this client doesn't make progress the way that I think that they should, if they are, if I can't see them either when they want me to, or if I can't see them at all because I don't have room in my schedule, whatever, why does that stir something in me, right? Because it's my job to save them. It's my job. If I don't help them make XYZ progress, what does that mean about me? Does it mean that I have failed them? Does it mean that I'm not a good therapist? Right? So I know it sounds perhaps weird to hear those things out loud, but I look at these things, these two big things, as these are the reasons where it sometimes becomes hard for us to hold our own boundaries. So if that's the case, what do we do to fix it, right? Pause for water break. So the first thing is we want to get really clear on what we want our boundaries to be. So again, if we use schedule as a nice easy example, what do I want my days and times to be for my schedule? So first is the clarity part. And then you want to develop the ability to have self-awareness of checking in with yourself of when do I need to hold true to this and when do I need to pause and get curious and consider flexibility, right? We're allowed to have flexibility with some of our boundaries, only with awareness though. Not with flippancy, not from a place, if we check in with ourselves, not from a place of nervousness, right? Not from a place of like, I have to adjust my schedule, otherwise this client's going to leave. That's not coming from a place of alignment, right? If I check in with myself and I say, you know what, I think this client could use some grace right now. I know what's going on. I will make an adjustment. That's different, right? But we need to practice that pause and that checking in to see, am I making this decision out of what I would call a low vibration, or am I making it from a higher vibration? So that flexibility is important, right? Because rigidity is still coming from a low vibration. So I've honestly seen so many posts in different Facebook groups where very well-meaning therapists that are just trying to figure out this whole boundary thing are asking questions about, I have a 24-hour cancellation policy and it's 2 minutes before that. So it's 23 hours and 58 minutes. Should I enact my fee for 2 minutes? Guys, come on. Like that amount of rigidity is causing stress. And if you think I have to adhere to it this closely, otherwise it means I'm letting them take advantage of me. Whew, there's some work there though, right? If that a level of rigidity exists, there's some work to do there. Okay? So what we're looking for here is you to develop your own inner guidance system. Can I check in with myself, and am I making this decision out of a place of contentedness, neutrality, or is there a fear thing that's going on at the same time? Okay, so now we're going to get even more into it in terms of how I frame things with clients that I'm working on or working with around this stuff. So always with me, again, you're going to hear like attachment stuff and then energy stuff coming together. So if these things, if any of these areas around boundaries you notice are issues for you, and then looking at or listening to those two big limiting beliefs around, this is why I may be having boundary issues, because I think it's my job to save them, or because I need them to like me, or I don't want to upset them, it's my job to not upset them. We want to then start off looking at the attachment part first for ourselves. Where did I learn that I needed to keep people from being upset with me? Where in my childhood did I learn that I needed to keep people from being upset with me? Where did I learn that if I spoke up for my feelings or my needs, that people were going to hurt me physically, mentally, emotionally, were going to reject me, were going to turn away from me, right? So we want to get clear on where in my life did I learn that I needed to be this way? Where in my life did I learn I have to perform a certain way in order to feel good enough? Where did I learn it was my job, my role in life to save other people, right? We want to get very gently, very compassionately curious about that. Sometimes the answer to that question is really obvious, right? Sometimes there's very obvious abuse, neglect, things like that, big trauma in our histories. And sometimes the answer to that question is much more subtle, right? Sometimes where I learned that, the patterns in our family were a little bit more subtle and they're a little bit harder to figure out, but I think that they're there, right? So once we kind of come up with an answer to that, we want to learn how to show up with great compassion for ourselves, right? Again, this is what we would do for our clients, right? We want to show up for the part of us that learned that with great compassion, because that pattern that we developed was really just coming from a place of needing to feel loved, needing to feel safe, and needing to feel good enough, right? So we're going to notice that part and then show up with compassion. We want to acknowledge that as a need, right? Of course, there's a basic need in general for me to want to be liked by other people in general. In general, right? Our clients don't always love us, right, in certain moments, but like in general, of course I have a need to want to be liked. We are herd animals, right? It's important for us in general to be a part of a herd in order for our survival. So it's okay that I have the need. I just have to then get my need met, make sure that I'm getting my need met to feel loved and safe and good enough in a healthy way, and not looking to clients or whatever to meet that need for me, right? So I need to figure out, like, where in my family relationships and my friendships can I get those needs met? Do I need a therapist? Do I need a coach? Or can I find a spiritual connection that can help me to feel seen and loved and supported? I just had like the most amazing experience with a client just yesterday where I helped her connect with a spirit guide of hers, and it was just the most beautiful experience, right? Because suddenly she had access to something that felt loving and could see her and be right there with her. So if we can't find it in our people, there's always cool alternatives of how to find that. The second part, so we're showing up with compassion, getting our needs met in a healthy way. The next part is we want to remember that law of attraction, right, is the energy I'm putting out into the world is what I'm attracting back to me like a magnet, whether it's something that I want or not, right? It's what my attention is on that carries the energy, whether it's something I want or I don't want. So if I seem like I keep having clients that keep late canceling, I need to get clear with myself about, I wonder what part of me keeps attracting this happening to me, right? Not because we're trying to like blame ourselves and say, oh my God, everything is my fault. It's not about that. I just had some experiences in the last couple of days of like things falling through. And what I did was like, this is irritating. This is frustrating. Of course it is. Let me pause and think about my energy. In what way might I be inadvertently sending out energy that is attracting back to me people canceling out, right? So it's not because I want to blame myself, but it actually is empowering for me to look at what can I clean up about my energy that will change this outcome that's going on? And sure enough, it did. As soon as I cleaned some of that shit up, then people started coming back in like I needed them to. So again, it's not about blaming, because if you're tough on yourself, that's also going out, and then you're going to attract more things for you to be tough about yourself. So we definitely do not want that. So I hope this makes sense. So we're looking at the boundaries stemming from limiting beliefs, stemming from our own unmet attachment needs. We want to get those needs met in healthy ways through the people around us or from spiritual connection, and then just being mindful of the energy that we're putting out, right? So I teach all of this, of course, in greater detail in my self-doubt recovery program, my coaching program, where I teach more specifically like how to connect with your guide and also how to tweak your words and your energy to be mindful of what you're attracting back to. So as always, I welcome you if that's something that you want to learn more about. I welcome you to schedule a discovery call with me and see if it's something that I can maybe help you with so that your practice ends up being the awesome, thriving practice that you are looking for. I hope this was helpful, guys. Any questions, always drop them in the comments, because I always can come back and answer them, or I can do a whole new talk on them. Who knows? I am so glad to have been able to share with you guys today. I will see you soon later on in this group.